Some of the most fascinating creatures described in the Bible are giants. The Bible also goes into some serious detail, specifically in the book of Genesis, about colossal monstrosities known as the Nephilim. They were violent superhuman offspring that were created when angels became tainted by their lust for human women in the days before Noah. The thing about the Nephilim was that they were so ugly, heinous, and sinful that God flooded the planet just to get rid of them. Noah then saved the rest of God's creatures with his mighty ark. The Bible describes the Nephilim as giant bullies. They thought they were better than ordinary humans, and their ruthlessness caused the planet to devolve into chaos. The Bible doesn't make them seem like metaphors for anything. On the contrary, it very much claims they were real hybrids of humans and angels that existed on Earth at some point in time. Number 9. Marduk. Marduk is one of the many gods whose name appears in the Bible. If the scripture is to be believed, Marduk was a blasphemous deity that wasn't to be trusted under any circumstances. Historical records show that Marduk was the chief god of Babylon, likely copied from the Greek god Zeus, known to the Romans as Jupiter. He was also known as Baal, whose name would shift to become Belial later on, as Christianity turned him into a demon. It's his association with snakes that connected him so closely to the devil and helped cement his place in early Christianity as a force of evil. In the Babylonian creation myth, Marduk became the lord of the Anunnaki following a cosmic civil war. Many believe the Anunnaki were a real race of human-like beings from another planet who fled to Earth following some kind of calamity. These otherworldly beings then turned their focus to helping early humans who were still extremely primitive and hadn't yet formed societies. Marduk was supposedly their leader. Number 8. Daniel's beasts. The book of Daniel is a very special part of the Bible that deals with a prophetic vision of the apocalypse. In it, Daniel receives an extremely strange vision that predicts the second coming of Christ and the end of the empires of man. In the forecast of the future, he beholds 4 great beasts. The first beast witnessed by Daniel was a lion with an eagle's wings. As Daniel watched, its wings were plucked off and it rose to stand on 2 feet like a man. Then the monster was given a man's heart. This beast was likely meant to be symbolic of the kingdom of Babylon. The second beast looked like a bear, but had 3 rib bones in its mouth, clenched fiercely between its teeth. This beast was told to arise from its slumber and devour flesh, and the 3 teeth in the bear's mouth represented the 3 empires that Cyrus the Great had already conquered. Then came the third beast. It looked like a leopard, except it had 4 heads and 2 sets of wings on its back. This unnatural creation was likely symbolic of Greece under the control of Alexander the Great. The fourth beast came immediately after, described by Daniel as dreadful and terrible. It had teeth of iron, 10 horns growing from its head, and huge feet to trample the ground. Daniel watched as the beast stomped and broke apart everything in its path. This powerful beast was meant to represent the Roman Empire. In the final days, these beastly empires would be defeated by the armies of the Lord. Number 7. Moloch. Moloch is an ancient pagan god that the Bible warned everyone about. Moloch was one of the few gods of the ancient world that could really be considered evil. The cult of Moloch, according to the Hebrew Bible, practiced barbarism at an exceptional level. The Holy Book claims the cult boiled children alive as offerings to their god. Rumor has it there are still devotees to Moloch alive today, and that they still carry out sacrifices in the name of this ancient deity. There are even old depictions of a thing called the Moloch idol. This was a 7-chamber chapel designed in the likeness of Moloch's bull form, with each of the 7 chambers reserved for a child sacrifice. Ancient Judaic texts show that worshipping Moloch was strictly outlawed, even by pagan standards 2,500 years ago. Number 6. The Army of the Apocalypse. Revelation 16:12-16 says that when the 6th angel poured out his bowl and the water of the Euphrates River dried, the final battle was to be fought against the kings from the east. Demonic spirits would then rise, and the kings of the world would rebel, resulting in the Battle of Armageddon. In the Bible, the soldiers are described as a demonic horde sent to destroy a third of humanity. This is just one part of the apocalypse, which involves things like the stars falling from the sky, the rivers running red with blood, and all kinds of nasty plagues. The 200 million demons is just a small part of the horrors that are said to occur during the apocalypse. Number 5. The Beasts of Revelation. The book of Revelation holds yet another vision of the end of the world, and once again, there's mention of some horrendous beasts. John, who's given a vision of the apocalypse as it will happen, sees 2 beasts rise up out of the sea. The first is an abhorrent thing given authority and power by the dragon, or the devil. It emerges from the abyss with 7 heads and 10 horns, each one topped with a crown. The name of this beast is Blasphemy, and it has the skin of a leopard, the feet of a bear, and the mouth of a lion. As it appears from the sea, a mortal wound on one of its heads heals itself, causing the people of Earth to stare and wonder. The humans are so fascinated by the unholy abomination that they follow it, and for that reason most biblical scholars agree that the first beast is the Antichrist. The second beast in Revelation doesn't come from the sea, but instead rises out of the earth. It's briefly described in the Bible as having a pair of horns and speaking in the tongue of the dragon. This is generally agreed to be the false prophet. In the final days of humanity, both beasts join forces with Satan to fight against Christ, only to be thrown into the lake of fire. Number 4. The Rahab. In the Hebrew Bible, Rahab is the name of a mystical sea monster. Rahab is also the Hebrew word for abyss, the dark chasm from which evil is unleashed in the final days of the Antichrist. In Isaiah, Rahab is described as an ancient monster that rises from the depths of the ocean to pierce the dragon. We know the dragon is the name of the devil in the Bible, so this single passage suggests Rahab was a beast of such great strength it could fight Lucifer himself. The best guess biblical scholars have is that the sea monster known as Rahab is directly related to the Babylonian sea goddess Tiamat. In Babylonian mythology, Tiamat fights against Marduk for supreme power over all the other gods. It seems both characters were incorporated into the Bible, and Tiamat was transformed into a leviathan of her own and set against the forces of evil. Number 2. Dagon. The Ophanim are celestial monstrosities from Christian mythology that are said to be on the side of good. Their description in the Book of Enoch says they're angels of the highest order of knowledge, entities that never sleep, and that guard the throne of God in heaven. But these aren't angels in the way you might be thinking. The Ophanim are almost described like machines, spirits encased inside a series of ever-moving wheels that are covered in eyeballs. The Ophanim are so unusual that it's no wonder you don't see them depicted in a lot of medieval artwork. The Book of Daniel mentions the wheels as being covered in burning fire, with their eyes always watching for any incursion into the kingdom of heaven. Some have even suggested that Ophanim are the wheels of God's personal heavenly chariot. Number 2. Dagon. Dagon is described in the Bible as a fish god. He's also depicted as a kind of merman. Whatever you want to think of him, Dagon was one of the weirder deities the Bible warned its followers about. He got his origins in ancient Assyria and was the fishy father of another god named Baal, sometimes also called Marduk. Dagon was worshipped by the Philistines, the Babylonians, and the Assyrians. It's in the book of Judges that the name Dagon comes up frequently. He is referred to as the god of the Philistines, the same deity they offered up sacrifices to. After the death of Israel's king Saul, the Philistines even cut off his head and then placed it in Dagon's temple of worship. There's no mistaking that Dagon was one of the most popular gods outside the kingdom of Israel about 2,500 years ago. Dagon briefly seduced the people of Israel into worshipping him, but then he was cut to pieces by Yahweh, the Hebrew name for God. Yahweh forced Dagon to bow before him in the Old Testament before cutting off his head and hands. Number 1. The Leviathan and the Behemoth. Few creatures from the Bible get attention quite like the Behemoth and Leviathan. They both appear in the book of Job, with the Behemoth being described as a creature created by God with immense power. It has bones made of bronze, limbs made of pure iron, and a tail so thick it's like a cedar tree. It's said to live in the marshes and rivers and has no fear of anything. The Bible even claims the Behemoth is the first among the works of God. The description sounds an awful lot like a hippopotamus that lives in the marshes. Others think the behemoth is in fact a dinosaur. The third option is that the author of Job was describing a mythological monster that people in biblical days thought was real. The Leviathan is supposedly a creature of biblical proportion that rises from the depths of the sea. It could be a sea serpent, the legendary kraken, or something as simple as a whale. Either way, these two beasts were so fierce and frightening, they were used as examples of God's ability to create monsters.